Good evening, everyone. I'm Elisa Pastor, Chair of the Planning Commission. Welcome to this meeting at 5:33 p.m. on December 1st. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Did we lose Jim? Jim, are you there? I don't see you.
Jim is still here.
Oh, strange. Okay, so can we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Fonda Bernardi?
Here.
Commissioner Fresco?
Here.
Commissioner Landris?
Here.
Commissioner Raskin?
Here.
Commissioner Reese?
Here.
And Chair Pastor.
Here. Thank you, Jean. So first of all, happy Hanukkah to those who celebrate, and hope everybody had a nice fall holiday. I want to note that Commissioner Lambert will not be with us tonight. So we have a quorum, and those of us who are here. Let's please first move on to the Planning Director's report.
Good evening, Commission. A couple of things coming up for the Planning Commission agenda later this month on December 15th. There's a conditional use permit application for 3212 Wilshire Boulevard. That's the Bevmo store. And then housing element implementation updated concepts. So we'll be discussing those. On items at City Council on November 23rd, the council denied the appeal for the Oceana Hotel. It was a 3-3 vote, so there weren't enough votes to overturn the appeal, but because there were lack of 4 votes, the appeal therefore was denied and the Planning Commission's action stands. And then coming up next week is the Shore Hotel appeal. That is really it for my report. Few housing element updates, outreach for implementation, production technical working groups happened on November 10th and November 17th. And then there's a housing commission meeting coming up on December 16th. And so yeah, that concludes my report. Happy to answer any questions if I have.
Thank you, David. Anyone have any questions of the Planning Director? Going once, going twice. Okay, thank you. Next is Planning Commissioner announcements, and I am going to, before we start that, announce the public comment procedures. Please note that tonight's procedures for public comment. We are accepting real-time oral public comment by phone for each item. Please check the top of the posted agenda for the phone number to call once the caller queue for each item opens. The caller queue will open when each item is introduced and will close after the first 5 public comments are heard. Written comments received up until today at noon have been read by the Commission. Comments received after noon today will be considered part of the record of proceedings, but may not be posted online with the Planning Commissioner's agenda prior to the meeting. In addition, I want to talk about the moderator chat limitations. I'm still speaking today. The moderator chat function in BlueJeans is for technical help from administrative staff only. It is not for public comment. I repeat, do not use the moderator chat for public comment. We, the Commission, cannot see the moderator chat, and comments will not be forwarded to the Commission or entered into the record. So, do any commissioners have announcements? And I want to start with Commissioner Landris, who I know has an announcement.
I do. Thank you, Chair. So, as I think I mentioned a meeting or two ago, I attended the CoMotion LA Mobility Conference, and I want to share 4 takeaways from that conference that I think are relevant for the work of the Planning Commission. Obviously not for discussion tonight, but for future consideration. The first has to do with ghost kitchens. I don't know if people are familiar with ghost kitchens. This is a new concept where when you order food for delivery, it may not come from the place that you think you ordered it from. If you may be delivered from a kitchen that is operating out of a commercial location close to you. Ghost kitchens have sprung up massively during COVID, and I attended a very interesting panel about them. I know that our planning team is aware of them. I know they're coming into Santa Monica, but they do raise compliance and enforcement issues. They're a very interesting idea because many restaurant kitchens are operating well below their capacity, so it's an opportunity for them to pick up additional revenue by simply maintaining certain menu items. But as they are developed, they raise land use standards issues related to curb use, related to customer pickup, and related to conflicts in the loading zones. There are also adaptive reuse versus new build conversations, depending on whether the business model is to go into an existing restaurant and encourage them to kind of amp up their kitchen operations, or whether you're actually doing a new build. I heard there's a 39 kitchen or a 39 brand kitchen going in at Sepulveda and Pico, for example, with no parking, right? So this conversation we should probably have at some point down the line. Second issue was related to mobility management. As some of you know, I had some concerns about safety when we heard the Tesla project. What was interesting to me, and I reported here, is that there is new technology that would have potentially enabled a much more real-time evaluation of traffic conflicts at intersections to help us as a commission make findings related to mobility safety, or potentially to issue provisional permits and then perhaps to monitor. And there are cameras on buses, cameras on streetlights. The AI technology is really improving, and it's a great interest. Third item, almost done. I attended a very interesting workshop on gender, land use, mobility, and well-being that was related to public transportation use. And I think Santa Monica does a pretty good job, but again, I had an interesting conversation with the organizer of the session from a nonprofit called New Cities, based in Canada, and when she was at an organization called Happy City, they did some work on the idea of a sociability density bonus, which I thought I'll be sharing some information before the December 15th meeting. But just like we give a density bonus for affordable housing, what would it look like to give a density bonus for land use construction development standards that actually encourage sociability among neighbors, that actually make a site a more livable site, a more human-friendly site? And I thought that was a conversation worth having as we navigate how to where to put our 9,000 units as we zone for them. And then finally, I heard a very good presentation from Santa Monica's own leadership on the new zero emission delivery zone, and I would sort of commend it for a presentation to the commission later on. Our zero emission zone is underway. It's a pilot that the council approved not too long ago. There's another pilot happening in the city of Los Angeles as well, but it too raises questions about curb use, removal or replacement of parking, loading zones, things like that, sidewalk safety, and again, I think it could be a very interesting conversation for us to know more about, and perhaps to have a study session on later on. But it was an excellent conference, and as you can tell, there was a lot for us to think about as we move beyond the shadow of the housing element.
Thank you, Commissioner Landreth. Any other planning commissioner comments? Questions? So let's move on to number 2, the consent calendar. So we are now opening the caller queue for public comment on items on the consent calendar. That is not for public hearing items, and in particular, we are not opening the queue for 706 10th Street. I just want to make that clear to everyone. But we are opening the queue for the consent calendar. There are 2 items on that calendar. I would like to pull item 2A off of the consent calendar. And to be very transparent about why I'm doing this, I reviewed the information and I was concerned about the lack of a full noise study, which was referenced in the CEQA documentation and in the staff report, but yet there was only an excerpt of that noise report in the record. And so staff did call the applicant and asked them to submit the full noise report so we can look at that. The applicant also understood that I would be making a motion to continue the item to December 15th, and it's my understanding that they were agreeable to that. So I would like to pull that item. I would like to make a motion that it be continued to the consent calendar of the December 15th, 2021. Can I get a second? Thank you.
Second.
Is there any discussion from anyone? Okay, can we get Commissioner Fonda-Bernardi?
I assume that means we will see the full sound report in the intervening 2 weeks, somewhere that will be posted. Is that accurate?
Yes, that's correct.
It will be posted with the December 15th agenda.
Okay.
So we'll call on. Oh, sorry.
Can I ask you a question of staff before? I mean, well, we could have the roll. I have a question about the item, so that is relevant to the December 15th hearing. The public correspondence asserts that people received very late notification. I don't know what the reality is, but what steps would be taken if we continue this to December 15th? What steps would be taken to make sure that concerned commenters, whether or not they are commenting, are fully aware of the date change and have an opportunity to communicate with staff and the commission either before then or on the day of?
So when the commission continues an item to a date certain, we do not need to renotice an item. However, we can certainly send a courtesy notice to, just basically redo the notice. We don't have to meet the 14-day requirement because obviously we're within that at this point, where we can send it as a courtesy to make sure that, our 750-foot radius is informed, put it in the paper again. But again, that's not a legal requirement. It's something we have sometimes done in the past, just out of courtesy. But again, when the commission continues, as you are tonight, to a date certain, there's not a need to renotice the item.
Chair, would you be amenable to a friendly amendment to our motion to request that the staff do that?
Yeah, that's fine. I don't know if it needs to be in the motion, but yeah.
Okay.
It needs to be in the motion. And also, I actually also talked to staff about this issue earlier, and staff did check that, and Jean, correct me if this is wrong, that owners and occupants of the properties within 750 feet were noticed.
That is correct,
Great.
yes.
Great.
Okay.
Ready for the vote? So this is on item 2A. Commissioner Fonda-Bernardi?
Yes.
Commissioner Fresco?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay.
Thanks,
Commissioner
Neil.
Commissioner Land?
Yes. Yes.
Commissioner Raskin?
Definitely yes.
Commissioner Reese?
Yes.
And Chair Pastor?
Yes. Thank you. Moving on to item 2B in the consent calendar. Do we have any ex parte disclosures? Okay, and item 2B is 734 12th Street, which is the vesting tentative parcel map for approval of an airspace subdivision for the purpose of constructing 3 new residential condominiums. Staff, do we have any callers in the queue on this item?
Let me double check. We have one caller in the queue, but I believe it's our caller for 6A. Hello there. Were you our caller for 6A?
I'm the caller for 706 10th Street.
Okay, great. I'm going to put you back on hold. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, we currently have no callers for the consent calendar.
Excellent. Can we please have a roll call vote? Oh,
Need a
sure.
motion?
Oh,
Sure, I'll move the consent calendar.
Thank you.
So moved.
Second, Commissioner Fonda-Bernardi.
Okay. Commissioner Fonda Bernardi,
Yes.
Commissioner Fresco,
Yes.
Commissioner Landris,
Yes.
Commissioner Raskin,
Yes.
Commissioner Reese,
Yes.
and Chair Pastor.
Yes. Thank you. We do not have any study session items. We do not have any continued items, and we do not have any staff administrative items. So moving on to our public hearing, item 6A, Commissioner Fonda Bernardi.
Yes. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to recuse myself on this item because I have a project that I'm designing right next door to it. So I think I need to be not involved in the discussion or the vote.
Thank you, Commissioner Fonda Bernardi. Have a good evening.
Happy holidays. Happy New Year. Oh no, we'll see you on the 15th.
Yeah, we'll see you.
We'll see you on the 15th.
You're on the 23rd.
Right, exactly.
So this is 706 10th Street, which is an appeal of the zoning administrator's denial of a height modification for an 8-foot high hedge within the front yard setback along the front and side, north and south property line. The caller queue for this item is now open, and staff will share the phone number on the screen for those of you who want to call into the queue. Melissa, are you going to do that? So anyone wishing to provide oral public comment on this item may call in now. Once you are in the queue, you will hear the meeting over the phone. When it is time for public comment and it's your turn to speak, you will be notified that you are being unmuted by the moderator. Commission, do we have any ex parte disclosures? No. Okay, so
I have one. I was raising my hand.
Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Fresco, I didn't see you.
My tiny little hand. I just wanted to say I drove by the property today at around 2 o'clock and spent some time walking around the street in front. That's all.
Thank you, Commissioner Fresco. So to the applicant, so the first thing that we're going to do is have a staff presentation. So that's going to be the next order of business, and then we will have questions to staff, and then we will let you make a presentation. So you can show yourselves again when you do your presentation. Thank you. So staff, want to take it away?
Sure. Can anyone see my presentation?
Yes, we can see it and we can hear you. Thank you.
Okay, great. Good evening, Commissioners. Tony Kim, Principal Planner. Before you tonight, staff is recommending the denial of an appeal of a hedge height modification denial at 706 10th Street. Staff is also recommending adoption of the Statement of Official Action. 706 10th Street is located in the R1 zone district. It is a standard size parcel of approximately 7,500 square feet. There is an existing single unit dwelling on site with a detached rear garage, and the height limit for front yard hedges at this location is 42 inches. The existing residence was completed in 2020, and sometime after completion of construction, illegal 8-foot high hedges were planted in the front yard. The applicant submitted a discretionary hedge height modification on September 11th of 2020 to maintain those 8-foot high hedges. The zoning administrator issued a denial of that modification application on January 25th of this year. This is a hedge plan showing the front yard of the subject property along 10th Street. You can see the 8-foot high hedges are planted along both sides of the front yard, as well as parallel to the front parcel line, and also on either side of the walkway. When analyzing these fence wall hedge height modification applications, the zoning administrator typically looks at a 1-block area for neighborhood context. In this case, the subject sites, both sides of 10th Street were looked at on this block. And you can see from this diagram that there are 4 existing legally registered overheight hedges in this one block area. There are also 11 total parcels that contain existing illegal non-conforming height hedges. The subject property there is starred mid-block on 10th Street. These are a couple photos showing the properties on either side of the subject parcel. Adjacent to the south, you see a couple properties with conforming height fences and hedges, and to the north, there are open front yards with no front hedges or fences. These are some more context photos that were provided in your staff report showing both sides of 10th Street and the existing front yard configurations along both sides of 10th Street. This is the west side of 10th Street, and this is the east side of 10th Street. In general, this block of 10th Street has open front yards or conforming front yard fences and hedges. In making in looking at height modifications for hedges, the zoning administrator must make 3 findings to support such modifications. 1, that the subject hedge will be compatible with other similar structures in the neighborhood and is required to mitigate impacts from adjacent uses, land uses, or the subject property's proximity to public rights of way or safety concerns. 2, that the granting of a modification will not be detrimental or injurious to the property or improvements in the general vicinity, and that the modification will not impair the integrity and character of the neighborhood in which the hedge is located. In denying the hedge height modification, the zoning administrator found that the subject hedge would not be compatible with other similar structures, given that there are only 4 parcels which contain legal non-conforming overhead hedges. In addition, the parcel is not adjacent to any nuisance land uses or high traffic volumes. The zoning administrator also found that the modification would impair the integrity and character of the neighborhood. This photo is a view looking south towards the subject property, showing the general open front yard streetscape along the subject block. In filing their appeal, the appellant contended that there was neighborhood support for the modification application. However, this is not one of the findings to support a hedge height modification. The appellant also contended that their parcel had unique privacy and security concerns. Staff believes that their parcel is not unique in this aspect compared to other parcels on the block. The appellant also contends that the hedges would provide noise reduction. Again, staff believes that 10th Street is not an unusually high trafficked street. The applicant also stated that their hedge is less visible of an obstruction compared to other hedges on the subject block. However, as staff mentioned, there are only 4 other legal non-conforming height hedges on the block. And again, the appellant stated that their overheight hedges are a common feature of the neighborhood, but only 4, again, are legally allowed to be at their non-conforming heights. The other existing non-conforming height hedges have been reported to code enforcement for further action on those violating hedges. So with that, staff is recommending denial of the appeal and maintaining the denial of the hedge height modification, and staff is recommending adoption of the statement of official action. And with that, staff is available for any questions you may have.
Thank you, Tony. Commissioners, any questions, comments? Okay. So let's go ahead and move on to the appellant's presentation. You all want to, I apologize if Mr. and Mrs. Kashper, is that how you pronounce your name? If you want to come back and you're welcome. There you are. Do you guys have a any kind of PowerPoint presentation?
Yeah, we do have a PowerPoint presentation, but please bear with us. The presentation is will be managed by Dennis.
Okay, great.
So that is the next computer to me.
Okay.
And I will start speaking about.
Okay.
Just one
so,
second,
and how long do you want for your presentation?
Well, I think that it will be maybe 12 minutes, something that will be.
That's fine. Okay. And Dennis, will you please make sure that your computer is on mute? We seem to be getting a little bit of feedback. So.
Yes, I understand. Yes, I understand. I'm bringing up the PowerPoint now so that Mr. and Mrs. Capture can go ahead and begin.
Great.
May I speak?
No, he's sharing screen.
Mr. Banks, could you please mute your computer?
Yes.
Can you share screen?
Looks like, yeah. Okay, so we can see your screen now. And yeah, we've got your PowerPoint now. Thank you.
Well, we are welcoming the opportunity to present the reasons why we appeal the decision of the zoning administrator to deny us the right to have higher hedges. To fully understand the reasons for us to have those hedges, I would like to start with a little bit of background. We have the only contemporary house on the block, and it is the only house with the main entrance on the side. This is something that we have chosen, and we have chosen in consultation with Dub Studios. Dub Studios' principal architects are Natalia Kasper and Gabriel Sandoval. Natalia is actually our daughter-in-law, and we chose those architects because Dub Studios is a great outfit which is known for designing great houses in Santa Monica, and in particular it's well known for designing the Santa Monica landmark, Brecht House, which is on 1063 26th Street. The house was designed in collaboration with the Santa Monica Preservation Commission and got an award for integrating the house heritage with contemporary edition. So working with Dub Studios, we were sure that our house will be integrated with our neighborhood by design. So our house and landscaping were intended to be an integral part of the block on the 10th Street. We are unique, but many houses are quite different on our block. However, one of the consequences of our design was that we have all glass exterior on the first floor front elevation and open floor plan. And those features of the house result in greater privacy, security, and noise concerns than probably any house on the block. That didn't scare us at all initially, but our concerns were after the riots, when the curfew was imposed and storefronts on Montana Street boarded. And our first floor looks very much like a storefront in a sense. So I would like Dennis to show okay. First. from the backyard. And please, from the street, I'm sure. I'm sorry. And here is the view from the backyard. So Natalia is actually here. And if you wish to add something with respect to designing our house, please do.
Good evening. So I just wanted to mention, I have been a resident of Santa Monica for almost 40 years, and I've been designing homes in Santa Monica for almost 20 years. And, you know, times have really changed, and I understand the intent of the code, but I think that after the riots, my mother-in-law, Mara in particular, was really frightened. Montana, which is only 400 feet away, was boarded up, was graffitied, was chaotic. And although that period has ended, crime in Santa Monica is up like never before. The streets are not the same. I don't allow my children to go out after dark anymore. And so, you know, the intent in the beginning was to create a glass facade and then to create landscape in the front which would filter the view as opposed to block it out. But after the occurrences and with the state of affairs now, again, my mother-in-law Mara was particularly afraid, and we felt that it was really necessary to create something in the front that gave them privacy, gave them a sense of security. And I would just like to say that, you know, I think it's important to consider that things have changed. It was not a malicious intent that we were trying to get away with this idea of a hedge, you know, in the front this way. It really came after, you know, the occurrences of that period and, you know, a great fear, which I think is warranted because there has been an incredible amount of crime. We have many homes like this Bertolt Brecht home on 26th Street. It's a loud street. It's a busy street. There's been quite a bit of crime nearby. There is nothing blocking this building. No one here is afraid. But at this particular home next to Montana and with things that have happened, there's been quite a bit of fear, and that is the reason. So I think that we'll let, you know, others speak on our behalf, but the fact that there are 11 other homes, whether they are legal or not legal, and then 4 that are legal, so we're discussing 15 other homes on this block that have hedges of this sort, to single out this family and to punish only them doesn't really seem to make sense, and I'm not sure how that's out of character with the rest of the street. I understand that there are some photos of houses next door to theirs where there's just a flat lawn, but I'm not sure why that should be the character of the street. Is that such a great look, not to have any trees or any landscape on your property? I'm not really sure what we're comparing to and what should be the look and character of the street. Again, 15 homes with tall hedges in the front, several homes with almost no landscape at all, just flat lawn. Not sure, you know, where the logic is of how things should or should not look for the character of the street. So just wanted to kind of explain the background to this building and how the landscape came about.
Thank you very much, Natasha. I would like to give Mara a chance to speak and elaborate on our safety concerns.
Hi, everybody. I just wanted to say a couple of things. Actually, one thing. You know, we came to Santa Monica 7 years ago from New York City, and because of our children. And in New York City, we lived in an apartment building, and we had a 24-hour doorman. So when we came, we loved that. We came to Santa Monica, we fell in love with the place. We rented several years, and finally we built this house. We were not planning. It's very offensive to me, I have to say, that some people, one person particular, thinks that we somehow manipulated the committee or the inspector to think that we wanted to put the low hedges and then turned around and put the high hedges. That wasn't the case at all. I don't think there is an architect who would want to hide his or her work. It wasn't in the plans. But after 30th of May, it was really scary to me. After all, there are only 2 of us in this house, and we're 74 years old. And it was quite a shock, I have to tell you. So the primary concern was safety. Our glass wall in the front looks like a store window, and you can see from 10th Street all the way to the end of the house by the alley. So we understand the desire for the open character of the neighborhood, but the times are changing. We're asking the committee to help us live safely without harassment in the neighborhood, where most people understand our concern, and most of the neighbors I went to, 19 of them, support our appeal. Thank you very much.
Yes, hello.
Okay, let's return to that slide that I started with. Can we return? No, the previous one. Previous one.
No.
The previous one. So obviously after the riots, we understood that there is a problem, and what we intend to show today is that our solution was to have higher hedges for our yard, and that first of all increases the feeling of security, but it also, as side benefits, provides more privacy and mitigates noise. Those are not the most important concerns for us, but those are the benefits of the hedges. So what we intend to provide evidence today is that we achieve that feeling of security without impairing the integrity of the neighborhood. And we are not creating any visual or other concerns for overwhelming majority of our neighbors. Actually, for all the neighbors that we talked to, with the exception of 1 neighbors that have filed a complaint. So now.
Yes, thank you. My name is Dennis Banks, and I will continue the presentation. As Natalia and Mr. and Mrs. Kaffer has clearly stated, their initial intent was not to have the hedges. However, because of the crime that has occurred, this was a security element that they had installed on their place. As far as compatibility, while the staff only talked of 4 that were registered, there are actually 11 others that exist in this area and have existed for a very long time. So bringing 15 total, 15 out of 27 properties on this block, that is a total of 56%, meaning the majority of properties in this block have non-conforming hedge in the front end or side yard. In addition, and so what I'd like to show also, in addition to the hedges that were registered, there are 2 that are registered that are 7 and 8 feet and even taller now, that are similar to the one that they have here at 706 10th Street. However, they do even more to hide the property, whereas this project or this hedge does not. And let me show you those now. The first one is at 602 10th Street. And that is on this block. That was a registered hedge. That hedge is 8 feet tall. As you can see, it clearly covers the entire front yard. The entire front yard, all 50 feet. There is no visibility from the street or from the public right-of-way. The next property is 611 10th Street. As you see, it too has a hedge of 7 feet, almost 8 at this point now. And the only opening is the little walkway, which is about 4 feet. So you see this, you saw the one at 602, which was entirely covered the property. You see this one at 611 10th Street, which entirely covers it except for a little opening. Here is the one they have. As you can see, much more wider, much more open. You can still see significant portions of the house. If people walk by, they still can see the property. They can still see the residence and design. However, it provides them the security that they desired. So we think that helps to address the first finding of mitigating potential public right-of-way concerns. Also, as mentioned earlier, this property is less than 400 feet from Montana Avenue. And that is significant because there is a lot of noise on Montana Avenue. It is one of the busiest commercial areas in Santa Monica. You have diners right now at the end of this block. There's diners at Rusty Restaurants. There are people who regularly walk, jog. I even spoke with a resident who lives on the 900 block of 10th Street, and they said that they walk regularly, him and his wife and their children regularly walk up and down the 700th block of 10th Street. So you have all of these people and cars and activity that happen on the 700 block of 10th Street because it's so adjacent to Montana Avenue. And because of that, one of the reasons they chose the tree, podocarpus hedge, is a great choice. The reason why it's a great choice is podocarpus trees are a type of evergreen tree. Where if you information from landscape professionals, botanists, and other experts regarding planting all agree that evergreen trees are the best natural type of year-round sound barriers to reduce sound.
And thank you. That has been your 15 minutes.
Say that again?
That has been your 15 minutes for your presentation. Thank you.
So if you want to just wrap it up and
yes, I'd like to wrap it up. So
wrap it up.
So in conclusion, I'd like to say that this site is not a detriment to the site. It is not a detriment to the area, as evidenced by the other 15 other properties that have non-conforming hedges, and the support of the neighbors that are all here, as you see with this petition, have all signed this petition, and that they support this hedge as is, and they believe that it should remain because they believe that it is compatible with the surrounding area. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Banks, and thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Cashford. Commissioners, do you have any questions for the applicant or the applicant's representative? Commissioner Reese.
On the issue of security, I'm curious, is there any police reports on the street from this street that shows pattern of crime in the houses along 10th Street here?
Okay, can I repeat the question? Yeah, the question was about
I'm just curious. We're talking about security.
Or security concerns, whether why are they justified? Okay, let me answer that. So, most importantly, as we have said, during riots and when there is large traffic, we at that time we saw that our house becomes the main attraction on the block, and that actually means that quite a few people were taking pictures of our house and were very complimentary and enthusiastic about it. But there were some for which our front-like, store-like glass doors were actually an attraction and kind of, in a sense, inspired mischievous behavior. We were finding more cans and bottles and other junk on our yard that were on any other yard. With respect to police report, we reported to the police when our new bike was stolen. And during the discussion with the zoning administrator, we went a little further, and she learned that it was stolen from the garage area. And she immediately assumed that that because it was stolen from the garage area, it is probably the intruder came from the alley. Apparently that was not the case, because we have a camera in our garage and there was no suspicious activity in the alley. So that most likely the intruder came from the front.
If it's okay, I would also like to add, I don't think it has to be specific to 10th Street that, that they need to investigate and find, specific crime on this block. I live in Santa Monica, like I said, and I have for almost 20 years. About a month ago, we had an issue where there was a robbery, and the car that the robbers were driving ran into a car right in front of our house. And then we had police coming into our house with, armed police looking for them in the middle of the night, searching our home and all of the, the neighboring homes as well. Last week, we had the police come knock on our door because someone was robbed at gunpoint in the afternoon, just having their watch stolen in front of our house. And we have a, what is that called, that camera in the front, and ring. And the police was asking, can they see our ring recording, because this person was just robbed in daylight at gunpoint. So I'm hoping, if any of you live in Santa Monica, that you have seen and understand that the kind of crime that we're seeing right now is quite different from anything we've seen before, or at least, again, 20 years of being here, it's quite different than it used to be.
Thank you for that response. For the record, we all are residents.
Commissioner Raskin.
Thank you. I just want to clarify something from the record that wasn't entirely clear, and forgive me if I missed it, but it sounds like the hedge was installed in 2020, and I'm inferring from the record that at some point after that you got a notice from the city that it was non-conforming, and then you applied for an after-the-fact modification. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yes.
Can I ask why you didn't apply for the permit before installing the hedge?
Well, because at the beginning, when we were not planning to do that, as I told you, but right before we moved in and after all these things started happening, we just asked our contractor to put higher hedges, and we didn't know, tell you the truth, what the laws are. But the reason that we had an inspector is because there was a complaint. That's when we found out.
Yeah, let me provide you with some dates. We actually, I think, got certificate of occupancy something like 12th of May, and the events happened in the last week of May, and we started planting those hedges in the second week of June, and Mr. and Mrs. Hartman wrote their first complaint letter on June 12th, immediately. And it was COVID environment. We really didn't understand how to learn, how to deal with the process. And we immediately got that kind of notice of violation. And that's why, and then,
we applied for an extension. Once we got the documents, we appealed for a modification.
Okay, thank you.
Other commissioners? Okay. Thank you so much. I guess let's go ahead and open public comment. So once again, the caller queue is open for this item. Melissa, how many callers do we have?
We have 3 so far.
We have 3 so far? Okay, so let's go ahead and give them 3 minutes apiece.
Okay. I'm unmuting our first caller. Welcome into the meeting. Please make sure you state your name clearly for the record, and you have 3 minutes for your statement.
Hi, my name is Bill Wiener.
And my name is Rena Kleiman.
We are the owners of the house at 638 10th Street, directly adjacent on the north side to the property at 706 10th Street, owned by Arik and Mara Kashper. We are calling to voice our support for allowing the owners of 706 10th Street to be allowed to retain the 8-foot hedge at the front of their new home. We believe the property with its current hedge is the most beautifully landscaped and attractive property on this block. It is not a solid hedge sitting next to the sidewalk like other hedges. It is pushed back with contemporary landscaping in front of it that is quite beautiful. It is not even the highest hedge on the block of all the 15 that you all refer to, and as you walk up and down the block on 10th Street, you will see many. It is completely in keeping with all of the properties on the street, more than, as you know, more than half of which have higher hedges. We also want to object to the arcane reasoning that others have used to criticize this hedge. Every house on this block is different in size, height, color, architectural style, with houses being put up as we speak every 6 months with new designs. It is not in any way uniform. Our neighborhood is not in any way a uniform development and is supportive of interesting architectural designs, which definitely include landscaping. The design of the Kashper house requires privacy along the entire front house, as the house has a full set of windows facing the street, which is just a small part of this issue. Not only does this hedge, it suits the character of the house with many different greenscapes all over the house in all different ways. We think it would put the residents in a less safe situation if people walking by could easily look directly into the entire house and might actually encourage criminal activity. We also don't think that the city of Santa Monica should take a chance of holding itself responsible for bringing about such an unsafe situation by not granting this appeal. We also want to comment on objections about the hedge made at the first hearing, which we were unable to attend. These comments quoted anonymous sources of quite outrageous comments stating that the hedge interferes with the air and the safety of the street. The idea of air being affected by the hedge for us has absolutely no meaning. Any question about the safety of the street would affect almost entirely our property. We do not have a driveway at the front of our house, so that hedge does not affect any of our views of the street. It does not interfere with any cars turning into any driveways, and it does not obstruct any views. In fact, it only increases the safety.
That has been your 3 minutes.
We strongly encourage the board to vote in favor of their appeal. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. If I can just very quickly just add to this comment.
We can't hear you.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Okay. Well, I can't hear it suddenly.
Can others hear me?
We're not allowed to hear from you.
We're not.
We hear you, but your presentation time is up.
Oh.
You will have 3 minutes to address all public comments once we hear all public comments.
Okay.
Okay. And are we ready for our next caller?
Yeah, could we take the Kashpers off screen? That they need to not have their screens on right now.
Yeah. Thank you, Sean. I was having some technical difficulties. Okay, can we move on to the next caller?
Our next caller is now off mute. Welcome to the meeting. Please state your name clearly for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Hello. My name is Roger Hartman. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Mr. Hartman.
All right. I have just, as you know, I submitted written comments, but I would like to comment on a number of things that were raised by the applicants today. First of all, in their petition, 2 of the people who signed the petition have sold their houses and moved, so that reduces the number. They have commented on noise from the front yard, that the hedge would prevent noise from the front yard. The city council adopted the ordinance some time ago on the basis or because people were building compounds and that it was inexorably changing the nature of the northern Montana neighborhoods. And if the city council wishes to amend that ordinance to allow people to enclose their entire lot so that streets just become narrow alleyways, they can do so. But to allow these appellants to start that process by simply installing a hedge without permission, illegally, and then saying that they need it for their safety is the wrong course of action. I urge the Planning Commission to uphold the zoning administrator's decision and deny the appeal so as to preserve the neighborhood, the character of the neighborhood.
Thank you, Mr. Hartman. Okay, Melissa, our next speaker, please.
Okay. Our next caller is off mute. You are live in the meeting, and please state your name clearly for the record, and you have 3 minutes for your statements.
Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Kristen Milicic. I reside at 709 10th Street, so I am across the street from the Cashper family. I wanted to thank the Planning Commission tonight for going over this. I fully support the Cashper family for having their hedge. I think they have their home is a beautiful addition to our neighborhood, and I don't think it impedes the view of their home. And I can totally vouch for wanting privacy and security with the proximity to Montana. And I just wanted to voice my support for my neighbors, Mar and Eric, and I think that they should 100% be allowed to maintain their hedge. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is that it, Melissa? I guess we should make another, or the queue is still open. And so if there's anybody else, Casper, no, we're not. Please take yourself off camera. Thank you. If there's anyone else who wants to make public comment, are we going to give them a minute, Melissa, to call in?
We can, since we didn't go through 5 public comments, which would usually be our cutoff. So I can put the screen up with a 1-minute timer just to give any last-minute callers a chance. A moment, and I will get that up there.
Okay, so once the timer has counted down, I am going to allow the Cashpers 1 minute for rebuttal. They already had, what?
They get 3.
3, even though they already had their 15 minutes? Is that right?
Pretty short.
Correct. Yes, they get 15 minutes for a presentation, 3 for rebuttal, if there's public comment. So yes.
So Cashpers, you will have 3 minutes for rebuttal, and then if staff has anything, and then we're going to have commission discussion.
I would just like to reply, as far as I understand, there's...
Hold on. We're not there yet. So the caller queue is now closed. We're going to go ahead and close that. So Casper, you're going to have 3 minutes for rebuttal, and you can please start.
I would just like to reply. As far as I understand, there is one disgruntled neighbor who posed the issue, and that is Mr. Hartman and his wife. And I'd like to reply to his comments. It is not the entire lot that has a hedge across it, like many of the others on the block. It's just part of the lot. The podocarpus is not a dense material. If whoever it was that came by and walked around and looked today, they would see podocarpus is quite transparent. You can see through a lot of it. It is not at all like ficus. So there's a lot of visibility of the house and even the glazing system through the podocarpus. Saying that it's not in character with the neighborhood is not correct. As we mentioned, more than 50% of the neighborhood has tall hedges. So that is very much in keeping. And as another neighbor pointed out, the neighborhood is quite varied. And so I would like to say also that, these neighbors, to be honest, were quite unhappy with the project from the get-go. During construction, Mrs. Hartman came over almost on a daily basis to check to make sure at 7:45 a.m. that no one rose a hammer to do anything. She commented to me that there were things about the project she didn't like. Clearly there's some sort of issue. I don't know why the other, 11 illegal houses were not attacked in any way, but that my family was. And I would like to just say, as the architect and as a family member, it seems quite unfair and unusual to create these allegations against them. So thank you very much for your time.
And also, I would like to point out, as you can see on the screen, there are several examples on the street of hedges that exist that are unregistered. We believe they're at 8 feet or higher. As you see, 723 10th Street, it's 96 feet. That's 8 feet. And then if you look at 609, it's 88 feet. So this is actually a common characteristic, and we hope you keep that in mind. Thank you.
Sure, I have a question for the applicant.
Yeah,
on
go
the
ahead.
basis of their...
Commissioner Hernandez.
Thank you. Could you bring back the picture of your podocarpus?
Yes.
Please.
Just a sec. Dennis has it. He'll put it up. You see the entrance to the house is on the side. You can see the entrance.
I do see the entrance.
You see the entrance?
No, I do. Let me get to my question, please. Thank you. I'm sorry. May I ask you the distance between each podocarpus?
I don't know.
I don't recall. I can email that information, but I want to say, had I known that this photo was going to be up, I would have taken a different photo, because the way that it's taken, it looks much more dense than it is. I don't know. I'm sorry, the commissioner that said that she was walking around this afternoon. If you walk by the podocarpus, you can look straight through it. You can see straight through it. I don't know how familiar everyone here on the commission is of podocarpus versus ficus or some of the more dense hedges. It's quite forgiving in the way that it lets light pass.
So forgive me.
Sorry?
I'm very familiar with podocarpus. I'm asking a question about the distance between the plantings.
I don't recall the distance.
Would you like me to go and check now quickly?
I don't know if that would be permitted to take new evidence in the middle. I don't think it would be. Let me rephrase.
You don't want to give your own numbers.
Let me ask you a different question. From this photo, it appears that it is not possible to walk between the podocarpus plantings. Is that accurate? Is that an accurate statement?
It's not possible because there's also a fence.
Okay.
If there were no fence,
right.
Yes, you could walk between it.
I'll wait to hear what
security issue and people could get in. Yes.
I understand that. I understand that. We've had podocarpus before in hedge appeals, and we've also had discussions about the definition of a hedge. So I wanted to find out whether it was possible to stand between or walk around each of the plantings
You can't
or
walk
not.
around, but you could fit between, but you cannot walk around.
Okay. All right. Terrific. Thank you. And I should say welcome to Santa Monica, Professor Kashper. I did not study directly with you, but I was a student in the Russian department at Columbia in 1990 and 1991. So this is not a recusal disclosure, but I did not know you would be here and recognize you. So it's very nice to see you here.
Nice to see you. Thank you.
Are there other commissioners who have questions? Okay, so thank you, Kashper. Staff, do you have anything else you'd like to add, or does anybody else have anything they want to ask of staff? And Dennis, yeah, thank you so much.
I mean,
Nothing
I would ask the follow-up question. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Commissioner.
Related to Tony, we've been around this trunk before, so to speak. Do we have a sense from the inspector of, what made it a hedge? I'm having Richard McKinnon flashbacks. We went around and around with Commissioner McKinnon and Commissioner Parry on this. Given the podocarpus distance, let's just be clear what makes this a hedge.
Sure. The code defines a hedge as a boundary or barrier of plant material formed by a row or series of shrubs, bushes, trees, or other similar vegetation that enclose, divide, or protect an area, or that prevent a person from passing between any combination of individual shrubs, bushes, trees, or other similar vegetation. So staff believes this definitely meets the definition of a hedge.
Okay. Thank you. I'm still...
Tony, just to follow up on that question, is there anything they could do to make it not a hedge? Like, could they, I don't know. I mean, I think that's where Commissioner Landris is going.
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Fresco maybe has an idea or has a comment about that.
Yeah, this is absolutely, definitely a hedge. I looked at it, I squinted, I could barely see through it. You could definitely not walk between those things. There's just, I think this is a big spin, and we should just, may I start discussion?
Just let me just make sure no one else has any questions for staff before. Anyone else want a clarification from staff? Okay, so let's go ahead and close public hearing and let's move on to commissioner discussion. And let's start with Commissioner Fresco.
Thank you. I feel that, I generally with hedges, I like to stick to our code because I think our code is very well written for all the right reasons. And I just wanted to comment on some of the evidence that was given to us. For example, about neighborhood compatibility and having a first floor of a house that, quote, looks like a storefront. Already we're having an issue with compatibility that is handed to us. In terms of a comparison with the Brecht House, I was on the Landmarks Commission when that was designated and when we reviewed that certificate of appropriateness. It is a beautiful addition. It is minimally visible from the street. You see a much more traditional house from the street, and what is visible is covered with ivy, not blocked by a hedge. So it's really not a comparable example. As far as safety, we have been over this many times with other appeals, and we've had police officers present who assure us that hedges decrease safety by giving the bad guys an opportunity to hide while they break into your house. So we had an example here where he was the one guy on his block with a hedge, and he said he needed to keep it because his house was always getting broken into. And that was because absolute true story, he provided a place for the bad guys to hide. Just on an empathy note, I also moved to Santa Monica from New York City and lived in a freestanding house for the first time in my life after living in a doorman building in New York. And it took me several months to be able to sleep comfortably, and it's an adjustment, and I feel you, but this is not the answer. Curtains would help. I think I saw you had curtains through the hedge, but I wasn't sure. And so I do not see any grounds to make the findings for this hedge. And so I would make a motion to deny the appeal and support the zoning administrator's findings.
Commissioner Raskin.
Yeah, I'm also generally not supportive of the appeal, but I got to tell you, from an equity standpoint and from a due process standpoint, it feels a little unfair to me that there could be 11 other properties in the block that can carry on with hedges that aren't being held to a legal standard. And it just feels really unfair to me. And I think that the answer really is that code enforcement has to make sure that everyone follows the law. But I think that the extent it's possible, I would like to somehow give direction to staff, make sure that laws are applied equitably in the surrounding area.
Commissioner Lambert, or Andrus.
Oh, I think Commissioner Fresco made a motion, and I may be prepared to second that, but I still think we should stay in discussion. I think this is Commissioner Raskin's first hedge appeal, so congratulations, Ellis. And welcome to the party. There is a built-in equity issue by nature of how the non-conforming hedges were registered. That favors people who have lived in Santa Monica longer than people who arrived in Santa Monica more recently, because that registration exemption expired, and no new hedges can be created. And then there's obviously the question of how hedges are enforced. Also, to a certain degree, many hedges cannot be enforced because officials of the government cannot enter people's property without the permission of the property owner or a warrant. It's the search and seizure. So
Let's focus on the findings here.
Well, no. So in terms of making the findings related to neighborhood compatibility, as much as I regret the variations, it strikes me that compared to even other hedge appeals we've seen, this neighborhood is rather more consistent than other neighborhoods where we have upheld the zoning administrator's decision. And so for me, to finish the thought, and I just wanted to give that explanation, I think it would be inequitable to apply a different standard on the basis of code enforcement to this property. I do want to acknowledge that that our city is changing, and that events have that events have occurred in our city, and that developments have occurred in our city that have led to changes. I do want to make 2 points about that. I was taken aback by the description in the first slide. I'm going to name it. First of all, George Floyd was murdered, and second of all, there were complex responses to that murder. It never justifies looting, but I want to name, in the wake of our conversations about race reparations and redlining, that I am uncomfortable with that aspect of the presentation. That said, we are all affected by changes in our city. I also believe there was a caller who said that the proper forum for responding to a changing city is the city council. And I think that with respect to, again, equity and sensitivity, we will not be held responsible. I need to state that clearly, for us to deny the appeal doesn't put us in the hot seat for anything terrible that happens. We certainly hope it does not, but it doesn't put us in the hot seat for that. I do want to say that if there needs to be a conversation about the security of homes in Santa Monica, that's a conversation for council to consider. But we need, in a situation like this, to apply the code as exists. So ultimately, as sympathetic as I am to some of the concerns that the appellant has raised, I do think that they should have known before they designed and built their property that they would be open to the street pursuant to our existing codes, and that the proper forum for requesting a change should not be a hedge appeal. And so I can't make the findings to sustain an appeal, and therefore will second Commissioner Fresco's motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Landis. Commissioner Reese, would you like to add anything? No obligation.
Yeah, I will be very short because I don't have a lot of new stuff. I appreciate what all the other commissioners said. I think the house is designed gorgeously, but it's designed with this flaw in it. I mean, I don't know if it's a flaw. It's gorgeous. It's doing exactly what it was. It was opening itself to the community. And there was an admission in the presentation that they didn't want a big wall in the beginning. So it meant they knew about it. They knew about the wall, and then they went back and they did it without permission. And they have an architect in the family who's designed a bunch of houses in the city. So it just seems to me that they knew the rules were there. They didn't want to apply them. Safety is a big concern everywhere in the city. My question was, it's not only just the city, it's the county. Was there something specific to this street that made it unsafer than other places in the city? And I want everyone to live a safe life, but the reality is we are where we are. I personally planted photocarpus to block the building next to me because it blocks so well. So I don't buy that argument either. I don't see justification to overturn this denial, and I think we should move forward with the vote.
Commissioner Raskin, last word before I come in.
Yeah. I just want to say, for the sake of the record, that part of the basis for my vote is that when governments grant deviations from development standards, they can't do so when there's a self-imposed hardship. I think that that's the case here.
Yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner Raskin. I agree with everything everyone has said. I mean, I am sympathetic. Sorry that you're feeling unsafe. I want you to feel safe. I agree with Commissioner Fresco. I don't think this is the way. And that the design, it's a gorgeous house. And unfortunately, I think that gorgeous open front has created some of this problem. So with that, we have a motion by Commissioner Fresco and a second by Commissioner Landis. Oh, wait, so is your motion, sorry, let's be clear what your motion is, because we're going to have two items, right? We're going to have a motion to deny the appeal.
I guess it was two motions, because I moved to deny the appeal and to uphold the findings of the zoning administrator.
Okay, so let's first, although I'm looking at my notes here and it says we do not need a second vote if no changes on the STOA were made. So Commissioner Fresco, single motion to deny the appeal and adopt the STOA as adopted by the zoning administrator. Second.
Yes, I do actually want to make I just want to, sorry, before we vote, I want to check one thing. I just want to, we've had this conversation before, so I'm going to say it. Topping a podocarpus is the fastest way to make a podocarpus grow. So I just want to say that with some empathy for the applicant, but really it needs to be conforming with the zoning ordinance. But we've had this conversation about that before, and so I just wanted to
let's vote.
Okay, this is to deny the appeal and deny the fensible hedge and adopt the statement of official action. Commissioner Fresco?
Yes.
Commissioner Landris?
Yes.
Commissioner Raskin?
Yes.
Commissioner Reese?
Yes.
And Chair Pastor?
Yes. Thank you. Okay, so moving on to item 7, which is resolutions, we have none. Moving on to item 8, which is written communications, we have none. Moving on to item 9, we have no planning commission discussion items, and we're now going to move on to public input, and so we are going to open the caller queue for this item, and staff will share the dial-in phone number. So if anybody would like to make public comment for an item that was not on today's agenda, but that is within our jurisdiction, now is your time. You may call in and make a public. Please note that the Planning Commission is barred by state law from taking any action on any item you may bring up, but we certainly will listen to any of your comments. And Melissa, did we have any other callers?
No, there's nobody currently in the queue.
Thank you. With that, we are going to close the queue, and we're going to move to adjournment. So the time is now 6:54 p.m., and we are adjourned, and our next meeting will be on December 15th, 5:30 p.m. Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening. Happy Hanukkah.
Thank you.
Celebrate.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.